with us. I'll be hosting it, so you have to hear more from me. But I'm really excited because these three people all know each other. So I'm the odd duckling out. But what we're going to be talking about is one of my favorite topics, which is how product marketing helps build product. And I can share some stories about that, throughout and ask questions. But really, this is just like pretend that this is for product marketers, like sitting in a room chatting and you just get to listen in. We're going to try to have an honest conversation and hopefully it'll be really juicy. I think it's a juicy topic. We all care about influencing product. We've talked about influencing the roadmap, like having the story, there's all these pieces that need to be in, and it's different at every company. So they're all super experienced. So I'm really excited to learn from them. So with no further ado, could you introduce yourself, Irina?
Sure. Hey guys, thanks for having me here. My name's Irina Skripnik. I head up product marketing at an education marketplace called Teachers Pay Teachers. I've led product marketing teams at both Lyft and LinkedIn, and so excited to share some thoughts.
Great, thank you.
Awesome. I'm Jonathan Young. I'm at Facebook, leading product marketing and go-to-market strategy for the financial services vertical, and got to know Irina at LinkedIn in a prior PMM role.
Hi everyone, Saif Hamid. I lead partnerships and product marketing at 4C Insights. I got some of my team in the audience today. We build software for marketers to optimize their media across channels for business outcomes. And I got to know these folks when we first partnered with LinkedIn a few years ago. So
amazing. And then I know you guys probably know already, but I worked at Intercom as a product marketer there. I took 2 products to market, and I was later a director of marketing at a fintech company. And at Intercom is really where I got to start experiencing what it's like to do what I call like story first product development, where first you decide. The way we did it is with the latest, one of the products we took to market, which was Articles, a knowledge-based product. They decided what problem they wanted to solve for. And then we experimented with writing the story before anything was like the solution was just scoped or anything like that. They just said like, okay, here's the problem we decided we want to solve. And we did the Amazon style where we write the press release first. And what we decided was by looking at competitors that no one on the market was doing this kind of like continual feedback loop help center. It was all a dead end. Even the Slack help center, which was powered by Zendesk at the time, you put a sad face down like this article didn't help me, and they're like, great, I'll take that under consideration. And we're like, okay, well, how are you going to take that into consideration? So what we decided was to write the story before they scoped the product. So it was, we want this product to be alive. We want there to be no dead ends. We want the user to trust the content by seeing who the author is, when the post was last updated. And if they have a bad experience, we want to trigger a live chat, so that you can talk with someone in customer support. And so by writing this story of what this would be, like no constraints on resources, like what's the best story we could tell, and the story that only we could tell, we wrote the story. And then as product development happened, which by the way took 14 months, the product team, because they had gotten consensus at the beginning, they were able to say like, okay, this feature, does it support the story? Is it in or out? And it really was amazing. And it just felt like it wasn't this cobbled together story at the end that's like build it and then figure out how to tell the story. It was like we were all on board with what the story was at the beginning. And so that's kind of what inspired this. So one of the questions, well, first of all, I want to hear from everyone in the panel. Actually, we have a really diverse group here. So I just want to hear really briefly, like, what did you study and what did you do like shortly in your earlier career? And if it wasn't marketing, like how are you applying that to this very ephemeral role of product marketing? Saif, do you want to go first?
yeah, sure, I'll start. I'll try to give a quicker version than I gave you last night.
Yeah.
I studied marketing. I think I'm the only one who studied marketing up here. And then with that, launched a record label out of college. I was also a music producer. Did that, kept doing that. That doesn't pay bills easily, so I joined the advertising world on the agency side. I was a creative copywriter, then creative director. Went freelance after that through several entrepreneurial ventures, which I would call all of them product marketing, right, for your own products. Ended up at 4C. The last company I started was acquired by 4C. At 4C, I've been head of product. I've run strategic operations and now partnerships and product marketing. So diverse, and I've been on both sides of the fence of the
Dark side.
of the debate we're here to discuss today. So yeah, that's me in
Amazing.
a nutshell.
And what'd you say?
So yeah, I studied sociology and political science, which is a bit of a jump to what I do now, but I've been able to make the link with the social media part with sociology and keeping an interest that way. But out of school, I ended up getting a job in financial services in more of a sales role, realized that I wanted to probably move into tech, having a little bit of background with some coding and design when I was in high school, and then financial services came calling back again. I got a job leading social media marketing at Citibank, and then realized, having been really close to a lot of the social networks, that I did want to get back into tech. Moved over to LinkedIn and have been in either product or partnerships roles, and then kind of brought that forward now at Facebook with this kind of tech and financial services role.
Amazing. It's never a straight line. That's why I always have to ask for product marketing. How about you, Irina?
So coming out of high school, I was fairly ambitious to be on Wall Street. I was going to be a finance woman. First semester in, I'm like, you know what? Nah, I really like consumer behavior. It's way better. So I ended up actually getting a degree in marketing, international marketing and comms. Two of us. But then, so I went to school full-time and worked full-time. So I'm originally a New Yorker, so I went to Zicklin School of Business. And I got into operations. I worked for a CD, DVD duplication company back in 2006. And then I got into ad tech. So I worked at Reed Elsevier in their innovations and product development group. And so innovations and product development at an old, really established company means ads online. And so rolled out DoubleClick back then before it was acquired by Google, and that's how I got into ad tech. So when I came to LinkedIn, back in 2011, the company was starting to go through hypergrowth, and the marketing solutions products were in the pilot phase. And so I started with the operations side of the business, and then as the business went and grew 10x, basically was one of the founding members of the product marketing team, and it emerged from a need. We basically had 13 different products that were hacked together at any point in time on hackathons, and we needed to establish proper products and proper systems. And so when we were launching our first global product internationally to about a sales team of 500, we needed to establish all the processes and take the product through all the things that product marketing has to go through, from validation to pilot to all the collateral that's needed to global training. Evolved the team there throughout the 6 years, and then wanted to try something new. So went off to Lyft to build out the product marketing team there for Lyft Business, and now for family reasons had to move to New York and building out the product marketing team for an education marketplace. So a little
Lucky New York. Yeah. So I'm going to ask the audience to raise their hand, but then I'll answer this. Tell me if this has ever happened to you. Product manager comes up and says, X is almost done. Can you announce it? Has that happened? I'm like, this time, but next time, we're going to go a little forward. So like, has that ever happened to you? And like, what was the key problem or like key learning? Like, how did you get the PMs to like understand this has to go sooner? Was there an epic fail? What happened?
So I actually didn't raise my hand.
Oh, you didn't?
I didn't.
Okay,
But
next.
Do you know why? So I was always fortunate enough to where product marketing was established and then product management was brought in. And so from the very beginning, very thoughtful, working directly with engineering and working directly with product management in order to establish that culture. So we kind of avoided the oopsie daisies and horror stories that I've heard from others.
Dream. Jonathan, has that happened to you?
Yeah, so I work at Facebook. We launch a lot of things. The velocity is real. There's about 100 products that launch in the ads business every year. And so being mapped to a vertical instead of a product, I'm kind of responsible for the whole portfolio of what's relevant for our customers. And there's often the case where something's about to launch tomorrow or launched yesterday, and we have to bring it to market and try to obviously relate it back to the customer needs of the financial services vertical or whatever other verticals that we have. So a lot of that is how do we pick the right ones to kind of focus in on and make sure that we are trying to tell as much of a coherent story as possible, but also how do we start to embed ourselves earlier on in the most relevant areas where we know our customers are going to have certain needs, so whether that's in targeting or measurement, so that we can move upstream, so we do actually have the opportunity to influence a little bit more, so it doesn't happen to us, but we're helping make it happen.
Nice. And how about you, Saif?
I swear I've never chucked anything over the fence. No, I don't think, I probably have. But I can speak for product, and then I'll speak for it from the other end. I think all PMs fundamentally want product marketing involved from the beginning, and all other functions, in fact. It may not seem that way. Velocity is a real thing, right? Pressure to release and move quickly is a real thing. But if we think about it, at the end of the day, there is no successful product release and then true lifecycle management of a product success, however you define that for your product, if you don't do all the things product marketing does, right, through the process. So, to me, and as I told you guys, I was really excited about this because we're in the process at 4C of overhauling the way product marketing and product work together, and really building it into what we're calling a continuum, where product marketing is involved from the first step, and it all has to be grounded in or founded in value ultimately, right? The earlier we get involved, the more we help, the better we do collectively at defining hypotheses and validating those. And I think you talked about, Irina, or maybe you did, real-time feedback loops. We got to do that stuff. Otherwise, products just designing in a vacuum and won't be as successful as they want to be. Yeah.
Nice. Well, it happened to me recently. One of my clients brought me on and said, hey, we're announcing a product into beta at a conference. And I was like, oh. And they're like, can you announce it? I was like, well, sounds like you already had something in mind. And so, we tried to piece together a story, and then really where I think the baton had gotten dropped, what we were really lacking was the full end-to-end experience just was really segmented. And I talk about this sometimes in blog posts or whatever, but as product marketers, you're working with tons of different stakeholders, and just because different parts of the org are working on different parts of the user experience doesn't mean that your users should see your org. And sometimes I can see an org chart in a user experience. I'm like, okay, well, this is where ads and product marketing stop talking, or this is where product marketing and product management stop talking because they called it one thing in the pricing sign-up flow, but now I think they're talking about the same thing in the product, but they didn't talk to each other. And so, the announcement and the copy for this, beta at a conference and the slides were beautiful, but we just didn't have time to carry that through to the product experience. And sure enough, conversions just weren't up to snuff, and that's what happens. Okay, juicy. Anyone else have anything to add?
One of our CTO's favorite lines is you ship your org.
Yeah.
You really do. So it's on all of us, I think. Well, it's on everyone in a company, but it's on all of us to stress the importance, get involved early. I'm curious how much time you had from being told something was going into beta till the conference.
4 weeks, but I was working part-time. It wasn't a full-time, and it's new people.
Yeah.
And the company just wasn't comfortable with that motion of taking products to market. So the first week was just panic. Yeah, very fast. Amazing. Okay, something else we talk about I've heard a lot the past 2 days of product marketing is it requires a lot of influence and soft skills, and you're working with tons of different people across the org. But something I struggled with, especially early in my career, is I actually have no control over that person, that team's KPIs, how they spend their time. How do you influence and convince people within your org to work with you towards this goal? Obviously they know they need to launch a product, but not everybody's boss is saying, give that person this many hours a week or whatnot. So how have you just influenced the rest of the org to all work in the same direction with you? Jonathan, do you want to start?
Yeah, sure. So I think as a product marketing manager, obviously one of the key skills is how do you wrangle all the cross-functional teams, herd the cats, right? And so, I think on a basic level, just getting to know people and making time, up front to really just get to, understand who they are as people, what motivates them, what they're excited by, what they're goaled by, and what their strengths and weaknesses are, and where they're at in terms of their involvement in the process. I think once you have that foundation, then you can start to build trust and also start to find ways to inspire based on an intersection of purpose. So for me, right now we're trying to build this new category at Facebook of financial services. It's one of the larger opportunities that we have. It's just also one of the more emerging ones, and there's a lot of work to be done, but we've all kind of, I guess the work I've been doing is try to lay the vision and the foundation for, like, again, this could be something big. And we all have a role to play in that. And I think people have really rallied around that common vision, and it's really kind of enabled me to be more of the hub for a lot of cross-functional teams. We work with product, sales, engineering, operations, all these different teams, probably 15 of them in total. It's a big company now, but I think being able to get that groundswell with everybody around the common, set of objectives allows you to just be able to create, a shared project or vision. And so I think that's been really helpful. And I think you just reinforce it in terms of the partnership you develop with them. So the work that you do, how you complement them in different ways in terms of the skills and the assets that you bring to the table. So, when it comes to product, I like to be able to bring in either unique perspective, having been on the customer side, for example, being able to kind of bring the voice of the market into the equation, help them get empathy for the process as well with our customers. So a lot of things there that we try to do, but ultimately, I think it comes back to like having a shared goal.
So I think shared objectives and the fact that you ship your org is the entire answer, I think, is in that. The way we do it, or the way we've started and have evolved into doing it is by, so we use OKRs at 4C, and done well or executed well using OKRs, everything cascades, ladders up into, a few main objectives.
And OKRs are?
OKRs, objectives and key results. It's a framework for setting and measuring goals. And so typically the way they work is you set company level objectives and key results, and then at the department and then personal level across the company, everything ladders up into those top level OKRs. Thank you. Good check there. So that kind of forces for us the idea of shared objectives. And so unless someone just doesn't want to achieve the shared objective, then in theory you have an easier job herding cats. Yeah, or let fewer cats to herd, I guess. Yeah.
How about you, Irina?
No, OKRs are a funny thing. They go through so much evolution. A different company, no matter what company I've been at, there's always an improvement in OKRs. Yeah. It really depends. So I firmly believe in building out the product marketing function in the way that fits the organization. There's really no template. You can read all the blogs and until you get in there and you know who your product leader is and who your counterparts are, that's how you're building out your function. At LinkedIn, the most kind of relationships were the most important thing for me, and figuring out who the ultimate decision maker is going to be, because that's the person who's going to help make the right decision. So if it's something that is impacting the sales team and the global sales team and the revenue and the numbers that they need to hit, then that's the person who's going to be my champion. And they're able to then have a really empathetic conversation with the head of product, and with the right amount of data and right amount of bullet points, you're able to then push back. Or if it's something that's product driven and the sales just have to be kind of more adaptive to it, then working really closely with the head of product and making sure that ultimately that's the person who's going to help you and champion for you. Granted, that conversation should happen fairly early on, build that relationship. Because then when things really don't go right, or if you need to delay a launch, so I've had to delay a launch. We were working on a targeting.
Me too. I don't think any of my launches gone on time.
No, but I actually had to block it. At LinkedIn, the framework that we've established was product marketing was the blocker for any launch. So you actually had to have sign off from product marketing before anything launches. Well, because otherwise it just, a sales team of 3,000 goes into chaos, and then you have to mitigate that. That just didn't make sense. So product marketing was the kind of the blocker point. Anything that with PR, anything with product, nothing goes live until there's a run of show document that basically outlines every 10 minutes that happen, who does what, have a go, no-go meeting, a check-in meeting, and then there's a time scale that everybody follows. And so we were approaching, and it was the V1 of a fairly complex targeting capability, and we were supposed to be slated to launch in January. And the V1 really was missing some P0s. And we were running a beta, and the feedback was coming back that the product stats are fine, the adoption is fine, but our support team has taken a hit. Customers are tripping up, you have to like reload a page in order for things to work. They didn't really get that memo, so they didn't reload the page, and so our support team was really getting a ton of feedback. And so I went to the head of product and I said, listen, the sales teams are doing great with this. The product is not in a place. Here are the stats from our customer support team. If you actually scale this and roll this out to the 90% of users, because we were ramped at about 10%, I was like, this is going to crush our ops teams. We absolutely can't do this. And he's like, well, how much time is needed? I'm like, I need to push the GA about 3 months. And so that was pushing it into the next quarter. But I was like, you absolutely can't do this. This is going to crush our operations teams. And he was like, you know what, you're right. And that was just having a very down-to-earth personal conversation and saying, you're going to impact the lives of these people who are going to have to work through over the basically all night. And it's going to be a really crappy experience for your customers because they're not going to know what they're doing and how it works. So that was at LinkedIn. And then specifically to OKRs at TBT, I just recently reorged my team under product. So I generally am a big fan of product marketing being under a marketing organization that creates really great flows for resourcing. But at TPT, we have a really strong brand team and a really strong growth team. And then we were originally rolling up through the VP of marketing. But it was just too hard to do OKRs that are aligned. We have a 3-to-1 ratio of PMs, 3 PMs to 1 PMM. It was just too hard to do OKRs and hit those goals.
Was that ABM that you stopped the line on?
The matched audiences.
Yeah, good job.
Yeah,
Thank
thanks.
you.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Was not ready.
Yeah,
We suffered from that delay a little bit.
Yeah, sorry about that. Yeah, partners had to wait a few months as well.
No, but it's the right move. And you had data to back your
I had data.
Yeah.
I also had a lot of stakeholders where I was like, sorry guys, here's the data. We have to delay. And at the end of the day, it was a very successful launch. It was fantastic. It ended up going out in April, and everyone was very happy, and it just smooth sailing, and we were able to get past that. But it was a really hard conversation. It was a really critical moment. It was a vulnerable moment where I really needed to create some empathy, and the culture at LinkedIn is also incredible. So I had some really great partners.
Is Alvaro here? He's the next speaker. Where is he? He's here. Why don't you come up and get set up, and we will take some Q&A while you do that. Anybody have questions? Yeah?
Thank you, everyone, for being here. It's been an informative discussion so far. My question is for Facebook's upcoming, I was not aware about the financial vertical, so it was nice to hear about that, but it reminded me most recently of yesterday's news about passwords being left unencrypted on Facebook. So my question is that when you are steering into an industry that is highly, very top-notch on security, when there's a market perception, hostile would be a strong word to use, but let's say, for the lack of a better word, where people are hostile and resistant towards trusting probably Facebook with something like that, as PMMs, is there a challenge you perceive? Do you have a say in a go, no-go strategy for feature rollouts? Probably say, okay, not now, maybe when the market is more conducive or things like that. Or do you still go with it? If you do, how?
Yeah, I mean, I think as a business, obviously, like, our users are paramount, right? We don't have a business without users, and trust is kind of the currency that you have to, maintain with them. And so I think it is a consideration for sure as we're thinking about how do we court the business side of the financial services vertical and the challenges that they face and the trust that they require. So I think it is definitely a consideration, and we're trying to be very thoughtful with how, when we go to market with products, we are a voice into that experience. And so, we're doing a lot around increased transparency, which is great, but also how do we make it very clear to the user exactly what that transparency is when we're engaging between them and a financial services institution that they may work with, and and us in between. And so I think that's definitely more heightened for sure. And there's a lot we can learn from the financial services category as well. Obviously, like, we're both in a business where we're dealing with sensitive data, and it's, something where I think more and more we're going to have lessons to learn there in terms of how do we continue to strengthen, and work through some of these things. But for the most part, I definitely think we want to find that balance between what's good for our users and then what's good for our customers is a secondary part.
Hi, I have a question. So you were saying at Facebook you have like 100 products you launch. So to be even more basic, tell me about what does launch mean to all of you? Is that like a list of activities? Is that a strategy? Do you have a go-to-market meeting? Do you run the launch? Like pragmatic marketing, PMM is the one that runs the show and just sort of assigns things. So I know it's like a delicate balance between product marketing and product and everybody else involved. So tell me a little bit about what launch means to you and how you approach that.
I can go. We did something similar at LinkedIn, but TBT as well. We categorize our launches in major, minor, and incremental. For anything that's major, you usually limit to major launches to 3 max per year, because that's where you have your embargoes and your PRs, and you're lining up all the different media outlets. You have landing pages. You have all these brand campaigns. For your kind of incremental, it really depends on who your target audience is. Most of the time you can enable and empower a comms team. So launch really means ramping the product to 100% of users. That means some sort of outbound communications, whether it's landing pages, whether it's campaigns, and then kind of all of the sales if you have a sales team, all the sales enablement that goes along with it. And anything that's incremental, I'm a big believer in product. Like, I've always also ran marketplace on marketplaces, and so in product is one of the best ways. Like, really great in product guidance and in product announcements are just fantastic to drive the behavior and the traction that you need.
Just to finish answering, we do similarly. It's kind of tiered. I fully agree with your last point. And we run playbooks that we've developed depending on whether it's a major product launch, something new, something incremental, something minor. We also, the other axis on which we think about things is whether we're launching something that will be directly to new customers or put us in front of new customers, or if we're taking something major or incremental to existing customers. We treat both a little differently.
This thing on. Any other questions? Oh, I forgot you. Sorry.
I want to follow up on your last comment about the reorg. So as a product marketer, we usually straddle between sales metrics and product metrics and sometimes marketing metrics as well. So I want to dig a little bit deeper in your case right now. Like, why do you think like moving over to product, like CPO, CTO would make better sense than a CMO or VP of marketing?
So the product that we have is a double-sided marketplace. So we have millions and millions of resources that teachers are able to. So it's kind of like an Etsy model. You have teachers that are uploading their full year curriculums, and then you have teachers that are going and basically pulling lesson plans and anything that they need. And so our product is both the marketplace. It's what we market, but it's also what we build on. And each product team is very focused on specific area: quality, ratings and reviews, subscription pricing model for schools. And so the metrics that are driven by the company are product level metrics. So right now we're a product driven organization, and the marketing is really focused on core marketplace growth and brand. So if this was a B2B company, then it makes much more sense. So at LinkedIn, it made way more sense for us to be under marketing. But because we're product metrics driven, it was just really difficult for my team to be able to align. Most of the time, all of our metrics and our OKRs were dedicated to product. So it just made a lot more sense. And to tell you the truth, moving us to the product organization from a cultural standpoint made more sense, because that level of trust is developed, and we actually have to go to less meetings. We're much more included. Everything is just cascaded, much more streamlined. And because product marketing was embedded into the marketing organization for about a year, we just built really fantastic relationships with marketing. So it made sense for my org to just streamline processes.
Any other questions? Oh, yeah.
The question to the three of you, with launches that are a little more gradual, with beta involved and dialing up slowly, how do you treat PR in those situations? So PR, sometimes it's easier when there's a big splash, sometimes rolling out slowly, kind of at odds, especially for a case that you mentioned that you have different strategies for if it's for existing customers or new customers.
Hey, you want me to start? So, good question. Tough one to answer regularly and build a playbook around for us in our space, in our industry. Reasons for doing PR are sometimes at odds, quite frankly, with timing on product launches, et cetera. So, there have been situations in which, let's rewind the clock and say when we first partnered with LinkedIn, but we knew the integration or the product that was going to go live as a result of the partnership was 6, 7 months out, just for the sake of discussion. In some scenarios, we'll do PR at the beginning and announce the partnership just to create some buzz, and that way clients find out about it. They know they can start to look to us for whatever LinkedIn solution they need, and then we announce it again, and it's a little more product specific once the product goes live. So we have a two-pronged approach where it's partnership and then product.
So it's a forward announcement, but then whatever buzz you generated, the forward announcement, you don't have a way to kind of channel it into a specific product.
Yeah, it's tricky. Yeah, it's tricky. So it's and we've done it well, and we've also done a bad job. We've definitely, like many companies, announced too early, and thus not been able to meet the demand that not fully, but we've had trouble kind of making good on the demand we generate with the buzz. So it's a, I don't know if I answered your question, but
yeah.
It also depends on the industry you're in. If you're in a highly competitive industry, you're continuously playing this game, and it's a very stressful game. So as you can imagine, Lyft and Uber, when I worked at Lyft, all the PR was basically up front, but then you are exposing yourself to really have to catch up and get all your resources behind it. So the decisions are made in a slightly different way. Whereas like at LinkedIn, when we did all of our betas and our pilots, users were whitelisted into tests. And so at that point in time, we had FAQs and preparing if media got caught wind of us doing something, but most of the time it really wasn't. We were really preparing the story and the big publication once we were going to market. So it really depends on your industry and the goals.
I might be able to add some insight there. One of the companies I'm working with now, we've decided to announce a beta that's closed. It's not just like a free-for-all, so you have to get approved. But we are really trying to position the company from like a single product to a platform. So it's like we're moving to this platform with the announcement of this beta, and there's some hardware involved. So we're kind of hoping that we're not going to get as much press at the beginning, but because it's a long sales cycle and a really hard implementation, that like letting the public know, they can kind of start planning ahead, wrap this around. And then we have like kind of a stellar, what I would consider not a product launch, but like a big feature launch, so that when we go to GA, it's GA and, it's not just, hey, it's available. It's like GA and a huge feature. And we just know that we're going to take a hit on press, like that we're not going to make as much of a splash in press with this beta announcement, but we're okay because it's like de-risking the launch a little bit and making it like a little bit more of a slow burn, and like we're okay with that. But if you're a consumer product and you need to make a splash, like make a splash. But sometimes you just have to know that we're going to have a smoother uptick on adoption in exchange for a little bit less press. Are you ready, Alvaro? Okay. Thank you so much to Saif, Irina, and Jonathan. They came last minute, like literally last minute. Okay. Thank you so much for coming. Okay. Oh, God. I'll learn how to juggle next time. I think we just leave them. Okay, please welcome Al.